Hello everyone, this is your friend Uzumkai Universe 2.0 and we are back in new fanfic. What if Naruto married Kurenai, Hinata, Ino and Temari? Part 3. Naruto. Naruto never made it to that night's session with Hinata-chan. Though Naruto isn't an expert in picking up on subtly, even he can see they're making decent progress, despite how boring all the housework was. Hinata-chan was almost looking directly at him for 2 seconds before she turns away. She can also say, hi, and, bye, to him without fidgeting much. As she is very shy, Naruto handles the bulk of the talking, not that he minds, since she seems content to listen, and in less than 2 sessions, he finds it's actually nice talking to someone who's willing to listen. If this wasn't orchestrated by Hinata-chan's sensei, he'd be happy to be friends with the shy girl outside of all Kurenai sensei's rules. The beautiful sensei had a lot of rules and sometimes they were hard to remember when he gets caught up in a story. It forces him to repeat her guidelines over and over in his head. Don't ask or mention her clan. Don't talk about specific events from school. Don't be too personal or ask her too many questions. If you run into her, act as you did before the sessions. And on and on. After every session, Kurenai-sensei would critique how he engaged the meek Hyuga heiress, reciting some of the comments she doesn't approve of verbatim. Even he didn't remember everything he said in the session, adding more to his opinion of the adult Kunoichi. For a sensei, she was beautiful, smelled really nice, and he liked the way she would lean over sometimes, but she was very controlling over every part of the sessions, even governing the way he talks. Apparently, she thinks he's too wise, but he's fairly sure she just doesn't like him much. She hasn't done anything outright to express her hatred of him, not like many of the villagers had when he was younger, but with every interaction, he felt more and more convinced she didn't see him as anything more than a tool. Still, Naruni had already told Naruto how incredibly strong Hinata-chan can and will be. Hastening her training so she can be that much stronger is definitely better, which is why Naruto feels bad about missing the session the day Ino came over. After the unexpected turn of events, one orgasm wasn't enough to settle him and he couldn't leave without taking care of his raging hard-on. His hand helped but a cold shower worked better. However, under the bone-deep cut of freezing water, he couldn't stop replaying Ino-chan's words in his head. You don't make me feel good at all. He recalls Ino trumpeting endlessly. A painfully sobering recollection rivaled only by a sentence equally as destructive, you don't even know what you're doing. Her words struck him as deeply as being seen as a failure does, because in this case, it's actually true. He didn't know what he was doing. In fact, he didn't even think about making her feel good at all, focused solely as he was on the immense pleasure he was feeling. If he were painfully honest with himself, he wasn't thinking of anything but satisfying the lust of his ravenous hunger. Why wouldn't Ino stay away from me when I couldn't even make sure she felt good too? On top of his guilt over his betrayal of Sakura-chan, it pained him to realize he was using Ino-chan to satisfy himself, and he never noticed until she had to yell to get it through his thick skull. He was selfish, and when he'd thought about the heedless way he'd rush into anything, it's demoralizing to realize he'd failed Ino-chan. If his mind loved training, and his stomach loved ramen, then his body, apparently, loved. It was like discovering a whole new world of joy, with untold but truly amazing kins, and Naruto was desperate for more exploration. He's been eager for that feeling since that day, but unlike training, he had no guide of reference, or, more importantly, a girl to train with. After all, he may be able to relieve himself every morning and night, but the connection he craves can't be done alone. Throughout his life, loneliness has been his constant companion, and though he'd never admit how much it bothered him, he could feel the solitude even in crowds. Training, ramen, pranks, all helped stifle the constant heartache of alienation. This new world he fortuitously discovered with Ino-chan could not be explored by himself like his other favorite activities. He absolutely needed someone else. Though it would be a dream come true if it were Sakura-chan, he knows pursuing her as he did would only get in the way of her self-discovery. Naruto made this monumental discovery with Ino-chan, a very beautiful girl in her own right, and likely more popular with the boys than Sakura-chan. The Yamanaka may not have his heart the way Sakura-chan does, but he did make a connection with her, if only for that afternoon. Aside from that day and the blowjob the day before, Naruto knows next to nothing about the pretty blonde. If Naruto wants to explore this new amazing branch of activity, he has to be good for her as much as she is for him. Sadly, he doesn't know what that means or entails, thus he stayed up well into the night torturing his mind for a solution to this complicated dilemma. He didn't even train, which only highlights the plight of his imp, as losing several hours of training actually amounts to days when he uses his clones. On top of the remorse of missing the session, he was feeling guilty he hadn't trained, especially with the knowledge of what's at stake, but fortunately, he's given the chance to catch up lost time. Listen up, my cute genin, Kakashi begins abruptly, showing up in a swirling circle of leave after being 2 hours late. I'm sad to report Sakura-chan has fallen ill, so she won't be joining us today. Is she going to be okay? Naruto fretfully asks, worried straight away about Sakura-chan. How bad is it? Is she in the hospital? Are we going to visit her? Ma, Kakashi starts, waving a free palm to calm the blonde down. Her mother said it was just a cold. She's resting in her home, so we shouldn't interrupt her recuperation. It's just a cold, Dobi, Sasuke calmly points out. Unless her existence is too weak for this world, it shouldn't kill her. She's not weak, Naruto throws back angrily. How anyone could love this pompous, emotional shut-in is beyond him, but Naruto's animosity has more to do than Sasuke's indifference. She's our teammate, Tem. And you better start treating her like one or all. Naruto angrily slams his right fist into his left palm. Kick your. I'd like to see you try. Dead last, a scowling Sasuke challenges. Hey, now, where did our teamwork go? Kakashi easily states, stepping between the two. Sasuke, Naruto's right. You should treat your teammates better. And Naruto, just because you don't agree with your teammate, doesn't mean you fight them. Now, since the third genin of this team is out, I'm willing to give you a 3-day weekend, but I want you both to continue training and conditioning. We may not have missions, but maximizing the strength of your body and skill never takes a break. Kakashi-sensei, Sasuke tamely calls. I need you to oversee my training. I guess I can take a look, Kakashi says, just aboard. Nay, Kakashi-sensei, Naruto eagerly chimes. I need you to look over my training too. If I have some time, sure, Kakashi replies, taking some of the wind out of the blonde's sail. How's that task Kurenai-sensei wanted going? What task? Sasuke quickly asks. As another Jonin-sensei training the Dobi as well. Sasuke is clearly irritated by that notion. Relax, I'm the only instructor for all the members of Team 7, Kakashi tells the raven-haired Avenger, who crosses his arms. Naruto. It's fine, I guess, Naruto tells him, recalling another of Kurenai-sensei's rules explicitly forbidding him from telling others how he's helping Hinata-chan. It's super boring though. Alright then, dismissed, Kakashi announces, and Naruto is off, hell-bent on making up lost training time. His thoughts couldn't be more apparent if he said it aloud. I'm going to get the second stage of that damn jutsu down today even if it kills me. Naruto's only break of the day came in the form of ramen, then he would sprint back into training deep in the forest, keeping well away from unexpected witnesses. When Naruni joins him for 30 minutes, Naruto goes all out trying to master this stage of the Rasengan. You have to work through the pain, Naruni would explain, though it was impossible for him to judge his progress since he couldn't see Naruto's progress. And focus as much chakra into that point as you can. Use the pain as a gauge. The more it hurts, the more force you infuse in the chakra. That's how you blow that stupid ball up. Naruto exuberantly calls, firing Naruto up. With 19 clones, all 20 Narutos spend the day trying to burst the rubber ball, pushing meeting Kurenai sensei as far as he possibly could until he couldn't afford to train another minute without being late. Naruto decided to rush back and let his clones continue training. He was nearly back in the village when his mind warped painfully, like someone tried to squeeze a huge influx of 19 individual memories and experiences in the small jar that is his brain. Before everything went black, he singles out the cause. Somehow one of the clones managed to burst the rubber ball to such a degree that all the clones were dispelled, knocking Naruto unconscious. He woke up in the morning on the forest floor not 50 yards from the top of the Hokage monument. Fortunately, his head aches with minimal throbbing, which is surprising considering how fast he heals. Heading home, his guilt for missing yet another session contends with his joy for completing the second stage of Rasengan. Triumphant joy won out and he simply commits to apologizing to Kurenai sensei before that night's session. Kurenai, hey, babe, you're ruining the dango for me, Anko tells her best and only girlfriend. The red-eyed beauty says nothing, knowing any reply she gives will only make it clear how much of her mind is full of stress. Kurenai's daily routines pale in comparison to the two positive pillars in her life at the moment, two faces at the forefront of her thoughts, one with indigo hair, looking disappointed that her sensei failed her, and the other face looks at her apathetically, as if he doesn't even care enough to hate her. I know this whole thing with the daimyo's daughter sucks, but you gotta keep it together, Anko continues after swallowing her green dango with delight. You can't ever be sure how these things'll turn out, you know. There could be an engagement until minutes before the wedding when it's called off because some other daimyo or prince needs some kind of alliance. And even if Asuma marries her, it's not like it's for love. You're not very good at cheering people up, Kurenai deadpans, pushing her red, white, and green dango away for her tea. I usually rely on a lot of alcohol to do the heavy lifting, Anko happily states as she grabs her friend's uneaten dango. Look, your little lamb is with her family for the weekend, I have some time before tonight's interrogation, let's get some drinks and have fun, yeah. Make a couple cute guys drool. I guess, Kurenai agrees, exhaling. I think that could help. And please get laid, the busty Kunoichi adds, quickly provoking a friendly glare from the red-eyed beauty. What? It's been ages already, and enough is enough. You've been all business since you got your brats and I'm telling you, you can't keep going without a bit of every once in a while. You might not have another opportunity to cut loose. You know it's not like I'm opposed to some overnight company, Kurenai levels. It's just. Kurenai trails off, an image of Asuma appears bright and impressive in her mind and heart. As much fun as a night of non-committed pleasure with a stranger can be, it's a paltry substitute to being with someone you genuinely love. If anything, it just means she has more of an emotional expectation from a partner that Anko didn't seem to care for. I know, Anko says sympathetically. We both have men in our lives we can't forget, though in my case it's because I want to murder him, brutally. It's why I keep it strictly physical, babe. I would if I could, Kurenai freely admits with a smirk. Kami, how much easier life would be. It's heaven, Anko returns with a broad smile. For now anyway. I'm sure it'll change eventually, way down the line if I'm lucky. Kurenai and Anko understand how change is inevitable. It's one of the many principles taught to every shinobi of the leaf. In their line of work, they can't allow that moment of being stupefied if something doesn't go as planned. Plans often fail, and that failure can cost lives, so they both know in order to survive, they must be able to adapt. Being adaptable means surviving longer and they all want to survive. After a moment of silence, Anko admits to her dearest friend, personally, I think this is the moment for you guys, but whatever happens, at least you'll know where you stand with him. That sounds better than all this stress and anxiety. We're trained to endure, Kurenai replies with no real conviction. No one can endure when love is in the mix, Anko easily replies. Field shinobi have no value if they chose loved ones over the mission and village. It's why Anbu literally conceal their persona from society, always detached, simply so the mission always stays first. If for some ed-up reason you and Asuma don't work out, at least I can expect to see one hell of a Team 8 for the Chunin exams, she jests with a wide grin. I don't need that kind of motivation to create the best team for the exams, Kurenai returns a little more forcefully than she intended. Kurenai brings her cup to her ruby-red lips, unable to shake the image of Hinata-chan's beautiful face breaking from sadness after being told for the second night in a row that they won't be having a session. The kind-hearted girl tried to be accepting of her sensei's decision, but she couldn't hide the abundance of sadness pouring from the girl. The young Hyuga was making so much progress, it broke her heart in an entirely different way from Asuma to have to stop. It made Kurenai eager to find Uzumaki-kun and yell at him for his part in what her dear student is going through. Unable to find the boy only added to her already high levels of agitation. Yeah, Anko says, easily batting away Kurenai's frustrations is nothing more than a girlfriend having a bad day. I got some reports to finish up. I'll see you tonight. Kurenai searched for the blue-eyed blonde menace for some time before giving up and heading home to ready herself some for the night. She didn't need her S-rank level of dress for casual drinks among friends at the usual Jonin-only bar, but it's always a bit of a thrill to look why enough to catch a man completely off guard. Wearing comfortable shorts that showed plenty of leg and a tight red top, she meets the others at Elite Spirits. It was gratifying spending time with Anko and catching up with Genma, Guy, Yugao, Hayate, and Kakashi. Despite how early in the evening it was, Kurenai had already earned her intoxicated buzz. That's not to imply she drinks heavily, quite the opposite, she's a very modest drinker. However, her typical strategy when out with Anko was to drink early and taper off for most of the night, so that a usually intoxicated Anko rarely notices. It also has the extra added bonus of no hangover the following day. Kakashi, Kurenai speaks up, taking a seat next to the copy ninja, would you care to explain to me where your student is hiding? Playing with a saucer of clear liquid, the elite Jonin asks, I assume we're talking about Naruto. Nodding stiffly, she states, none too happily, he's missed 2 meetings. These delays are unacceptable. Sensing her clear agitation, he chuckles lightly, hoping to ease the tension a bit. Well, that kid is a ball of energy, you know. He doesn't do boring well. He told you what I wanted help with. Her eyes widen, getting more upset than surprised. No, Kakashi quickly tells the brunette. He just said it was boring. He's generally out most of the day, but the best places to find him are Ichiraku's or his apartment. I suggest trying Ichiraku's first. It smells better. Content with the info, she simply tells him, as his sensei, you're ultimately responsible for his faults, so I expect you to buy my drinks to make up for it. Genma and Hayate laugh, and without a response from the famous ninja, she simply leaves and returns to Anko's side, momentarily relishing in getting one over Asuma's friend. It seemed fate did not approve. Neither Anko or Kurenai expected Asuma to enter the bar, a muscular arm entwined with the delicate arm of Princess Tomoko, only she wasn't dressed as royalty of the Fire Nation. Instead of the large ornamental gown, pristine in its cleanliness as it was complex in its appearance, she was wearing a tasteful, yet alluring royal red dress, cut a few inches above her knee so when she sits most of her thigh will show. Her hair was loose, silky in its buoyancy, and long, reaching her lower back. Her face and neck were elegantly longer than Kurenai first observed, which only made her look that much nobler. It was with great tribulation and heartache that Kurenai kept drinking more than she should. It was explained to them, because naturally, Asuma would bring her to their table, that the princess wanted a break from her perfect life to congregate below her station. Kurenai listened to every word, memorized every gesture between them, but the phenomenon that made her heart sink into her stomach was the way Asuma would only look at her red irises when it was due in polite conversation. It clearly demonstrated that Kurenai was no more or less important than anyone at the table. It hadn't stung immediately, but the longer it simmered, the worse that realization became, and with her growing anxiety, so too did her drinking grow. When Anko eventually realized that Kurenai had consumed far more sake than she should have, she gathers her highly inebriated friend and bids them all good night. With her girlfriend's arm wrapped around her neck, it took Anko ages to reach Kurenai's house, all the while listening to Kurenai's tearful apology for her behavior. "I'm SSOSS sorry, Anko," Kurenai slurs a remorseful apology. "I let it get under my skin. I let her, It's okay," Anko kindly returns as she lays the beauty on her couch. "If she wasn't a princess of our country, I'd have kicked that bitches for you." Looking up at her friend dearly, Kurenai couldn't stop the tears any more than she could stop the smile that spread her sad face. "Thank you. I was beside myself with anger. Not even at her, but, just, at everything. That's what rough is for, babe," Anko comments, but Kurenai is too in her head to hear it. Worried, Anko's concern compelled her to ask, "Do you need me to stay? I can get someone else to torture my prisoner for me." Pulling out of her thoughts, Kurenai simply shakes her head, "No. No, thank you, Anko. It's inappropriate to shirk your responsibilities. I'll be fine. Plus I know how much you love their screams." "I do," Anko grins. "Okay, I'll check on you tomorrow," she declares before leaving her. Kurenai stumbles into her kitchen, swaying heavily toward the cabinet. Pilfering through the contents of the top shelf, her hand finally lands on the bottle of sake she stored for occasions such as emergencies or celebrations. She hugged her sake, taking it with her to the backyard, where Kurenai drank directly from the bottle as she envisioned the princess on one of the targets she has set up 30 yards away. Launching a kunai, she misses the imaginary forehead for the imaginary ear. She pictured Asuma on another target and missed just as badly. In between swigs, she imagined many faces: the Hokage, for allowing this; Hiashi, for Hinata-chan's predicament; her mother, for leaving; her father, for dying; Uzumaki, for being content as the vessel for that monster that took her father; Anko, for not torturing the princess; Hinata-chan for being so weak-willed; and clearer than all their faces, herself, for all her failures. Every face was spared a kunai to the forehead, all except her own, which she shot with deadly accuracy. "Hello," a loud familiar call sounds from the front of her home. "Why do I know that voice?" her mind sluggishly asks as her sloppy feet shuffle to the front door. Halfway there and the person wouldn't stop knocking, irking her enough to yell, "All right. I'm coming." Slowly, Kurenai takes in the sight of a tan boy with blonde spiky hair and deep baby blue eyes. "You," her irately mind narrows in on. He missed sessions when he had no right to. He's at her front door when he has no right to. He smiles at her when he has no right to. With anger-fueled recognition, she allows herself a moment of selfishness, a moment of release of the poisonous anger her character and virtues always keeps in check. Looking at Naruto, remembering Hinata-chan dismay for canceling the last 2 sessions, thinking of her father, it was easy, too easy, to let go of the anxious rage bubbling within her. "Yo," Naruto calls with half a smile, and Kurenai felt body move, as if detached from her will, with a single-minded purpose to attack and destroy the source of her scorn. With the speed of a first-rate jonin, Kurenai punched the unsuspecting boy, hard, in the nose. She felt the satisfying crunch of a broken nose as she sent him back several feet. It was the only sound in the cold night of her neighborhood. Landing hard, his hands are already covering his bleeding nose as he rolls to a stop. She walks calmly toward him, devoid of sympathy, regret, or hesitation, as he awkwardly yells, "Whaa da fluck." As he gets up, Kurenai kicks him with all her considerable strength in the stomach, knocking all the oxygen out of his lungs as he flies through her picket fence onto the hard deserted street. He rolls to a stop and his desperate hands feebly fixates on painful wounds no amount of rubbing would ease. Still walking towards him, patient as the setting sun, she watches him gasping for air through his bloodied mouth, clutching at his stomach with both arms until he finally notices her approach, her face, in particular. Naruto forces his feet under him and decides to run rather than fight. Like a bolt from an arrow, he dashes away as fast as he can until he feels an immensely sharp pain rapidly spreading from the back his thigh throughout his body, making him trip and tumble through the dirt floor. Adrenaline gathers his bearing, and when he awkwardly looks to the back of his left thigh, he sees a kunai sticking out. Turning to the fierce Jonin, still calmly walking toward him, still making that face, he grits his teeth, grabs the kunai's handle and yanks it out before fleeing. Thankfully she doesn't pursue him, and Naruto doesn't stop running until he reaches his apartment. Unsure of what to make of what happened, he throws himself into bed and burrows himself in his sheets. Kurenai returns to her home, to the sake bottle on the kitchen counter, and drinks the night and her worries away. It's Sunday, and Ino is cheerfully making her way through the market with a bag of syrup-coated anko dumplings. Her elation is so effortless, she barely feels the need to don her mask that reveals nothing to the world of her worries or struggles. It amazes her how easy it is to hide her strong cravings for an inferior boy she doesn't like when she has relative control over the rival for the boy she does love. But Ino's wise enough to understand she really only has the illusion of control over Sakura, and not unquestioned control. Ino knows Sakura would much prefer those photos never saw the light of day, but if Ino backed Sakura too hard into a corner, the Pinkett could do something radical that might bring everything into the light. They were ninja, after all. Secrets came with the territory, but also how to manage them. Ino needed to be tough but fair. Establish the rules, follow through, and punish if Sakura challenges the order of things. Sakura's family live in the civilian sector just past the markets. It's a nice two-story home for a successful tradesman and elected official, and unlike her clan home, Sakura's home has modern architecture. A design Ino remembers loving when she visited as a little girl. Knocking on the door of the Haruno residence, Ino meets Sakura's blonde-haired mother. "Morning, Mebuki-san," Ino cheerfully announces with a smile. "Ino-chan," Mebuki calls in question. "Oh my, what a lovely surprise. I haven't seen you in so long. My, look how beautiful you've grown," Mrs. Haruno exclaims, examining the beautiful flower in front of her from top to bottom. Ino shyly poses, thrilled by the older woman's rave adoration. "Thank you, Mebuki-san. It's great to see you again. It really has been too long." "Much, but you're here now," Mebuki urges. "I take it you've come by to see how Sakura is doing." Her sensei has come by and one of her teammates, but she wasn't up to seeing anyone. "Which teammate?" Ino cautiously asks, hoping Takami Sasuke-kun didn't care. "The blonde one," Mebuki replies with a crinkle of her nose, as if smelling a foul odor, allowing Ino to release a relieved breath she didn't know she was holding in. "Well, I know I haven't been by in a while, but I think maybe a female friend will do the trick," Ino alleges with a bright smile. Mebuki returns the smile and allows Ino in before going upstairs. As Ino had anticipated, Sakura was, well enough, to see her, and a few minutes later, Mebuki leaves a tray of tea and biscuits on Sakura's desk. "I can handle that, Mebuki-san," Ino tells the older blonde, taking the kettle and pouring 2 cups. "If you need anything else, I'll be in the kitchen," the mother tells them as she leaves. The silence in the room is staggering, but it doesn't bother Ino in the slightest. She takes the cups and extends one to Sakura. This is a basic test Ino uses to gauge where to begin, and Sakura is smart enough to know taking the cup isn't just polite but to some extent, submissive. While not a rule anyone should simply use, it is a decent indication where they both stand. One of them will be the submissive, the unresistant, the tame, and the other will be the dominant, the assertive, the lead, because if they're both assertive about their positions, the probability of things spiraling out of control is high. With the pictures in Ino's possession, Sakura's predicament can easily turn into something worse, something the green-eyed beauty would never be able to live down. Hence Sakura begrudgingly takes the offered cup, and Ino smiles a little. Watching Sakura defeated manner from the seat by the bed, Ino can't help but remember when she was bedridden, though the shock of what she went through immobilized her for a whole week. Comfortable in her position, Ino takes a sip of her tea, enjoying the slightly sweet and fragrant beverage when Sakura finally asks, "How could you? That's what you want to start with?" Ino returns. Sakura's defiant stare is answer enough, and for the prosperity of her power over the Pinkett, Ino chooses to answer honestly, "To tell you the truth, you caught me on a bad day. We haven't been friends for a while so you wouldn't know, but I've been having a bad time of it lately, and that day, you were definitely the tipping point." Because I was talking about Sasuke-kun, Sakura reasons aloud. Ino nods as she answers, "I snapped." Play snapping her manicured fingers for effect. "So because you were PMSing, you took out all your bullshit on me?" Sakura angrily retorts. Taking an Insta photo from her pocket, Ino calmly states, "I don't know if you want to give your mother a reason to come up here, but it wouldn't go well for you if she did." Sakura struggles to force herself to calm down. They stay silent a few moments, making sure Mebuki hadn't heard her daughter yell and was on her way. Once they were sure, Sakura asks, "So, I expect you'll be going after Sasuke-kun now. But, you should know I won't just sit by and let him end up with a cruel, manipulative, rapist bitch like you." Forcing down her own insulting rebuttal, Ino can't help but feel uncertainty, hesitation, when she entertains thoughts of her and Sasuke-kun now. She loves him and more than anything wants to be with him, but the daydreams of their first kiss, their first date, their first time, their first child, they've become no more than ash. With the exception of her first child, there aren't many significant firsts that she hadn't already given to that blonde idiot. Ino is still very much within the powerful orbit of her womanizing, and the partner who helped find her was Naruto. Even now, she wakes up at least once a night to a frenzy of feather light, micro-orgasms erupting throughout her sweaty body from the most erotic, Naruto-centered fantasies. Worse still, she's already used the pictures of herself as Sakura enthusiastically sucking Naruto's to get herself off 3 times. No, thoughts of Sasuke-kun aren't as pure or perfect as they used to be, and Ino isn't sure how to deal with that. Fortunately, her love for him isn't challenged every day since genin teams usually don't interact in the first few months. In fact, she hasn't seen Sasuke-kun since the academy. "We're not here to talk about me," Ino responds, brushing aside Sakura's concern for the boy they both love. "You should worry more about yourself, since I'm here to make sure you understand the rules." "What rules?" Sakura suspiciously asks. "Oh, forehead, you didn't think I'd make you figure that out on your own, did you?" Ino chides, fanning herself with the photograph, its backside facing Sakura so she can't see what it depicts. "I'm sure I don't have to tell you what'll happen if you break one of these rules. And I'm sure I don't have to tell you what'll happen to you if I tell the Hokage what you did to me," she hastily returns. "Using family jutsu on me, raping me, blackmailing me. Those are all crimes." "They certainly are. But Sakura, I'm the heiress of the noble Yamanaka clan. One of the 4 honored clans of Konoha. Obviously, my family wouldn't allow me to be sent to prison. If you consider the fact that you and I are fairly inexperienced, brats, prone to making bad choices in our youthful age, I feel confident I'll be okay. Confident enough to take the risk. You, on the other hand, will have to live with the very public shame of being the girl who sucked off the dead last of our year." A boy everyone hates. I have no doubt that stigma will stick with you for a long time. Maybe other guys will try to get some of that action for themselves because they think you're easy, and don't think you won't consider it either, since I doubt Sasuke-kun will ever be with a woman who was with that idiot. Team 7 will probably disband after. But it was you. Sakura cries. It was your mouth, the platinum blonde returns. It was not lost on Ino how she, in actuality, is the one carrying that shame of being with Naruto, and the daily urges that come with it, but much like Sakura, she doesn't want anyone to know either. As it clearly shows in all the photos. Ino shows her the photo of Sakura on her knees, her pink hair a mess, taking Naruto deep enough that the tip of her nose was rubbing his blonde pubes. Sakura turns away, disgusted by just the flash of it. This reaction works well for Ino, as her original plan was to give Sakura a copy for her to always carry around, but after inspecting how hungry Ino, in Sakura's body, looked as she devoured his thick prick, the platinum blonde decided it might be too easy for Sakura to notice and possibly deduce Ino's wanton shame. Sakura looks defeated, exactly where Ino wants her. The rules, Ino curtly picks up. As I said before, you're going to stop all advances towards Sasuke-kun. No dates, no presents, no walks alone, I don't even want you to sit by him. No makeup, no perfume, or skin creams, you won't need any of that since you're no longer trying to impress him. If there's anything else I'm forgetting, don't try that either. There is no loophole to this rule, and you will follow it, not only to the letter, but in its spirit as well. Do we understand each other? Slowly, dejectedly, with a grimace on her face, Sakura nods once. Ino continues, I realize you're teammates, and since there's nothing I can do about that, rule 2 is you have to hang out with Naruto more. The flames of indignation race back to Sakura's jade green eyes. The furious Kunoichi tightened her shoulders and clenched her fists, ready to punch Ino's nose through the back of her head. It took all of Ino's considerable effort to mask her startled panic and subsequent fear for her physical well-being, remaining as still as possible. It took several moments for a fist-raised Sakura to stop huffing her seething outrage and forcibly unclench her fists. When Ino was sure Sakura was calm enough, she continues, I'm not saying you have to date the idiot, honest. Even I wouldn't be so cruel, but I do want you to train with him. I can't, Sakura growls, holding back her anger. I just can't. I know the moment I see him, I'll feel this overwhelming urge to kill him. Literally, kill him. Makes sense, but if you do, he won't know why, Ino comments. Baffled, though through rage-filled eyes, Sakura demands to know, what do you mean? He's in the picture. Obviously, he was a willing participant in raping me. No, actually, he didn't even know it was you, Ino says as she displays the photo again. You know it's Naruto because of his pants, his hands, the jacket, his mouth, chin, and a few of his birthmarks, but what you can barely see is the edge of the photo is a blindfold I made him wear. Now, I didn't really need to blindfold him, but it helped with this neat little jutsu daddy taught me. By the end, I made Naruto forget the last 10 minutes and he went straight to sleep. Wide-eyed and hopeful, Sakura desperately asks, so he doesn't know? Or he thinks it was a dream, Ino suggests, easily enforcing the lie to a willing Sakura. It's clear she doesn't want anyone to know, and it also helps her plans if Sakura doesn't do anything reckless. But again, the blindfold helped make the jutsu possible since he didn't actually see anything. I doubt he even remembers you walking into his gross apartment, telling him how much you loved him instead of Sasuke-kun, getting on your knees, ripping down his pants. Alright, Sakura bellows. Alright, he doesn't know, or else he would have been knocking on your window every hour since then to see you, Ino reasons, impregnating the lie. Rule 2. Spend more time with Naruto. In fact, you're going to join him every single time he trains, without fail. Ino, please, Sakura pleads. If the others, Anybody really sees me spending so much time with that baka, they'll think I like him. Maybe, maybe not, Ino shrugs callously. I don't care either way, but unfortunately for Sasuke-kun, he's stuck with the two of you, and I will not have either of you slowing him down, or causing him injury because you're both too stupid and weak. I want Sasuke-kun to stay safe from enemies and incompetent team members, so, keep learning Iryo Ninjutsu, but from now on, you're training with Naruto as well. Is that understood? Sakura simply nods. Rule 3, Ino continues. I expect a report every 2 weeks, obviously written by you, on certain topics. What topics? Sakura curiously asks, more surprised by the rule than the curiosity of the topics. Whatever I choose, Ino answers. I could ask for a report on the best ways to give a blow job and you'll do it. Sakura blushed, though angered by her reaction and the memory of her trauma. Ino pays her little mind as she continues, I want objective, comprehensive reports using your own experiences as examples. The first topic is on obsession, specifically on love obsession. If you finish early, start on the next topic, superficial love. If you finish with that one, start on the third topic, what is real love? Provide examples with a minor comparison to obsessive love, all due 2 weeks from each other. Sakura actually looks surprised by this rule, and can't help but ask, why? Are you kidding me? Ino asks with a mild look of disgust on her face. You're like the poster child for obsessive love. I've been telling you for ages that your love for Sasuke-kun isn't real, but you always brushed it aside thinking that I was trying to trick you. I bet you never once considered that the Yamanaka clan are students of the mind, of society, and that I've been exposed to more social, behavioral sciences than you ever have. If you don't want to believe me, fine. I'll make sure you read how perfectly you fit the definition of superficial and obsessive love. You won't change my mind, Sakura urts. I love Sasuke-kun no matter what you make me read. I actually wanted to help back then, Ino explains truthfully. But you don't even realize because you have no frame of reference. If he was a murderer or a rapist, would you still love him? All you cling to is this, I love him no matter what, bullshit. But you don't have the self-respect necessary for love. Now you have no choice. If you want to stay ignorant after a couple dozen reports, fine. At that point, I'd say you're beyond medical treatment, though for your sake, I hope you're lucky and decide to grow and learn. Is that all? Sakura practically spits. I'm getting really sick of seeing you spout your utter horse crap. Getting up and moving to put back her empty cup of tea, Ino answers, you break any of these rules, Sasuke-kun sees them first, then your parents, and so on. What guarantees do I have you won't just show him on a whim, or to prove some point? Sakura angrily asks after the retreating blonde. What if you find out that he loves me just as much as I love him? Are you going to poison our love just because you had a bad day? I don't know, Ino easily states. I suppose I'll ask him why he thinks he loves you, after, of course, we give him a full medical workup to make sure he's not being controlled somehow, she says with a winning smile. As for your guarantee, you don't have one. It's not like I'm asking you to do anything heinous here, just train, and read. Pretty easy compared to the damage I can do, so just be a good girl and do as your Inoheim commands. Sakura says nothing as Ino drops a white bag on her bed, tell her to enjoy the dumplings, before she leaves. Alright, Naruni's voice calls. Great job learning the second stage so fast. Naruto chuckles happily. Learning the second stage of Rasengan has really been the past week's only saving grace. More than ever, Naruto was eagerly training with several clones on the second stage until Naruni returned. Naruni then asks his younger self, you ready for the last stage? You bet. Alright. Naruni then pianately explains, the third stage is containment, and it's even harder than the last 2 stages. Obviously, I'll give you every tip I can, but your body is going to have to learn it. Blow a balloon to the same size as the rubber ball. Another balloon. Why do you think I had you buy those as well? Naruni gently asks, thinking it should have been obvious. I thought they were celebration balloons, Naruto admits. You know, to celebrate when I learned this technique. Naruto can't see Naruni shake his head, but he can hear his long exhale. Like I said, you want the air balloon to be the same size as the rubber ball. This is to help you visualize the shape. You're going to combine 100% of the first two stages, rotation and power, but contain it in a sphere. So if you pop the balloon, you fail. If the balloon even wiggles a little, you fail. That sounds impossible. Naruto can't help but gasp, completely shocked. Man, I really wish I was there to show you, but you're me, and this is for our special people, so I know you'll get it. At the mention of special people, Naruto can't help but wonder about his own, or lack thereof. Academy graduate and a ranked member of Konoha's shinobi forces, and he's still getting ulted by ninja. Everyone still thinks he's not worth their time. Naruto feels like he's getting stronger, but nothing's changed. Quote. Hey, Naruni. Yeah, Naruni voices. Thinking about his most recent attack by the Jonin sensei he was helping, Naruto asks, do people still hate me in the future? I don't think my teammates started looking at me differently until after our first real mission. The other genin probably looked at me differently after the Chunin exams, and the villagers, not until years later. Why? Has a Jonin sensei ever beaten you up? Loads of people have beaten me up, Naruni isn't afraid to admit. But you know, instead of letting them get to me, I put my everything into proving them wrong, showing them and myself, that I'm not what they think I am, that I'm worth more. And you know what else? Listening intently to the best thing that's ever happened to him, Naruto eagerly asks, what? It'll take some time, but hard work is the only way of making your dreams come true. You wouldn't give up on being Hokage just like you wouldn't give up on Sakura-chan, Kakashi-sensei, Iruka-sensei, Ji-chan, Tsukiji and Ayame Nisan, even the Tem. Oh, and I can't forget the one and only Ino-chan, that still blows my mind, Ino. You and me both, Naruto laughs. Have you talked to her? Actually, she came by the apartment. Naruto chuckles like a gleeful maniac at the memory of her lips wrapped around his, then his mood sours when he recalls the sting of her departing words. I think she's having a hard time, like she's not sure if she likes me or not. Can't really help much there, mini-me. Sorry, Naruni says, lamenting having so few answers for his past self. If there were some way to train for that, believe me, I would tell you. I know. It's okay. Thanks anyway, Naruni, Naruto happily tells the future voice. Now let's get cracking. I want to master Rasengan by next week. Ha! Don't look down on the technique created by the fourth. Naruni warns good-naturedly. This is an A-CL jutsu for a reason. Naruni gave him every tip he had learned before he couldn't remain any longer. Naruto spent all the afternoon and part of the early evening in the forest training, until a dinner break made him return to his apartment. He would have loved to dine in Ichiraku's, but the weekends were hectic for the friendly uncle and his daughter, so Naruto thought of his instant cup of ramen fondly, until he stepped on the fourth floor of his building to find someone waiting for him. Kurenai. Waking up on the kitchen floor, in a puddle of dried vomit is the unsightly result of a long night of heavy drinking. Her hangover was and painful, to the point she almost didn't want to move from the vomit-covered floor. Just thinking of how pathetic she is made her head throb. It didn't all come back to her right away. Under crisis, Kurenai's mind worked one step at a time, and the current step was gathering enough resolve to remove herself from the repugnant stench of vomit-mixed sake. For the first hour, Kurenai thought of nothing but swearing off alcohol as fatigue, nausea, migraine, and dehydration stunt all her movements, from taking a cold shower, to changing into comfortable clothes, she forces herself through it all, even cleaning her kitchen of the drowning stench of ammonia and vomit. It is as Kurenai is thoroughly disinfecting her tile floor that her higher reasoning, the method by which she governs her entire life, begins to process everything that happened. "Oh, Cammy," she swears, rubbing her throbbing temples soothingly as flashes of last night start to filter through the splintering pounding of her poisoned mind. Kurenai suffered every which way she could feel misery, however, proper agony is reserved for those she interacted with. Not only had she made a fool of herself in front of her friends, respective peers, and forced Anko to drag her home, but she violently attacked a weeks-old Genin. "Cammy, I threw a kunai at him as he ran away," Kurenai shamefully voices as her memories clearly replays the entire incident. As terrible as she felt about attacking a weak unguarded boy nearly half her age, she was more worried about Hinata-chan. For whatever reason, the girl absolutely adores the Jinchuriki and he, above anyone else, can help her the fastest. "And I ulted him with a weapon." Kurenai stopped cleaning and reached for the sake bottle on its side, hoping for a little bit left to ease the magnitude of her up. "What the is wrong with me?" she states in alarm, tipping the bottle over her lips and finding no dampening relief in the empty bottle. A flash of a saddened Hinata-chan with the caged bird seal on her forehead feels prophetic, making her feel powerless to stop it. Growing increasingly anxious, Kurenai felt like she was panicking more than she could control and rushed to the nearest seat. Taking deep and even breaths, Kurenai tried to slow her thoughts and clear her mind of self-deprecating reflection. Her shinobi training for torture situations tells her not to endure pain necessarily, but to consider one's life as the duty of the village. The concept that a ninja is more than a body, but a nation, keeps the mind sound through turmoil, and in this case, serves her well as she voices, Yuhi Kurenai. Kunoichi of Kanahagakure. Rank, Jonin. Registration number 010881. As she speaks, thoughts of Asuma didn't seem quite so disparaging. Yuhi Kurenai. Kunoichi of Kanahagakure. Rank, Jonin. Registration number 010881. She repeats, and thoughts of Hinata-chan with the cursed seal on her forehead didn't seem so inevitable. Yuhi Kurenai. Kunoichi of Kanahagakure. Rank, Jonin. Registration number 010881, and again, thoughts of her father didn't seem so disappointed in her failure. She repeats the coping method several times before she calms down, and focuses on what she does best, critical thinking and planning. As there is little she can do about Asuma, and any focus on him only increases her agitation, Kurenai reflects on Hinata-chan, and how to get her training back on track. The indigo-haired Genin is making so much progress in her team training, even smiling more. In 1 week, with hard work and unwavering diligence, the beautiful Kunoichi was starting to come out of her shell. Missing the last 2 sessions, the sadness in Hinata-chan's eyes because of it, Kurenai felt shame for snapping the way she did on Uzumaki-kun. She knows it wasn't right, but for Hinata-chan's future, she'll have to fix her error somehow. She spends the rest of the afternoon rehydrating as she cleans, all the while trying to anticipate the boy's needs for the possibility of bribing him. The ideal situation would be if he understood that she was far too drunk and angry to make good decisions. Certainly, he must know alcohol inhibits thought of consequences, making it easier to make bad decisions. Who wouldn't know that? If he does, then she can finesse a way for him to return to the sessions, but the critical analysis part of her mind felt the likelihood of that happening was very low. At dusk, she does a moderately intense workout to increase blood flow and ease tense muscles before showering and searching for the boy. Armed with Kakashi's intelligence, her first stop was the ramen shop as it was closer than his apartment. Asking the busy girl if she's seen Uzumaki-kun, the girl informed her he generally doesn't come by on the weekends. After thanking the waitress, and coasting the market toward his apartment, Kurenai was praying it wouldn't take long to find him. Fortune must have been paying attention because barely a moment after knocking on his rusting door, Uzumaki-kun steps off the stairs onto his floor. The panic on his face is immediate, throwing out a rash finger and yelling, "Stay back." Kurenai expected a reaction but not to this degree. She can see him inspect his surrounding, prompting her to raise her hand in surrender as she states, Uzu Naruto-kun, as all she gets out before he hops on the wall of the apartment, and to her surprise runs up the wall toward the roof. Kakashi's already teaching them tree climbing chakra control. Is her only consideration before she realizes she now has to chase after him, a task that she's heard many times in the Chunin bars is very annoying. Hopping on the wall, she gives chase. They leap from rooftop to rooftop, and to her great displeasure, he's making her work for it. The boy was smart enough to travel toward the market before jumping and landing down in the streets to try and lose her in the crowd. Kurenai keeps the high ground, for the inevitability that he would disguise himself to move with the crowd. Unfortunately for him, villagers and people is a whole project easily if you pay enough attention. She can separate a crowd of routine everyday destinations from subtle yet cautious attempts to blend. Red irises scan the throng of villagers like a hawk, and soon enough, she spots her prey casually looking around before walking again. It was a good disguise, she notes, but he's obviously lacking experience in body language. Kurenai retains a safe distance above as she tails him. When the genin is confident he'd lost her, he enters an alley to cut across to the next street, and that's when she drops in front of him. Relax. She starts quickly putting empty hands up. I'm not here to hurt you. Maybe not this time, he throws back, jumping in the academy standard fighting stance. But who knows when you'll be in a mood to beat on a genin again. He wasn't wrong, Kurenai guiltily thought, adding, but this isn't getting us anywhere. Naruto-kun, I came to apologize for what happened last night. Oh, you mean apologize for stabbing me in the leg with a kunai? He yells, drawing some attention from the perbi. Realizing they should talk in private, she suggests, how about we go somewhere else? We're not too far from my home. They're actually very far from her home, but Kurenai didn't want to have this conversation around anyone with even decent abilities in surveillance and reconnaissance. This may be a military village, but attacking active shinobi, lower rank or not, is taken very serious. Not only is it possible the walk could cool him down, but her home is private. He looked warily at her offer, as if about to say no when she adds, please. I'd really like the chance to make it up to you. Very reluctantly, he agrees, but he stays behind her the entire walk to her home, giving her the unsavory opportunity to add a little more sway to her to break down some of his justified anger. For the setting, Kurenai picks the comfortable couches and gestures for him to have a seat so she can strategically sit across from him to cross her legs whenever needed. She didn't like the idea of using her wiles on someone so full of teenage hormones to manipulate him, but this was too important to leave to his immature process of esment and resolution. She'll offer him what she needs to in order to re-establish his help, but she needs to be sure he's not too emotional to say no. She expected the normally talkative boy to yell at her straight away, but he says nothing, and many seconds pass in painful silence. Within those seconds she analyzes his appearance and overall demeanor. He's clearly suspicious of her and not at all shy about showing anger. He's very dirty, training being the most obvious reason, but with dried sweat, bits of blood, dirt, grime, and mud stains littering his body, he looks as if he's been thrown to the ground for hours. Finally, she offers, how about you wash up a bit and I'll make us some tea. You remember where the bathroom is, she states, moving toward the kitchen without his compliance. Before she takes more than 3 steps he interrupts, can't you just say what you wanna say so I can get out of here? It'll only take a second, she counters. Go on, wash up and I promise I won't keep you long. She exits into the kitchen and is relieved to hear him get up and head to the bathroom. Come on, water. cool him down, she mentally hopes. Though he was grumbling the entire way, it's definitely positive that he's following her suggestions. Settled exactly as they were moments later, his cleaner face still blatantly mistrustful, he impatiently started tapping the floor with a shaky leg. I guess not, she thinks, recognizing no difference in his attitude. In hopes of breaking the ice with a compliment, she happily comments, I had no idea Kakashi-sensei started training your team on the tree walking exercise. You did it quite naturally. He didn't, Naruto answers hotly. I'm going to leave, and I'll fight you this time if you try to stop me, or you can say whatever the hell you want to say, so I can get back to my training. A dog with a bone worse than Akamaru, Kurenai thinks before gracefully jumping right in. Naruto-kun, I sincerely apologize for what I did to you. You know, I expect that from stupid civilians, or retired shinobi, but not Jonin-sensei. It's understandable how many react to the sight of the blonde. She too, will occasionally see the rampaging monster over the boy. But rather than let this be some emotional tirade, she replies, you're right. I should have known better and I am sorry. I was upset and took it out on you when I shouldn't have, but, part of it was due to you missing our last 2 sessions. Hinata-chan was doing really well and you may have hindered all the progress we've made. I wasn't trying to skip out, Naruto irately returns. But as he couldn't exactly bring up Ino's blowjob nor his longest-lasting boner ever, he simply said, something came up, without going into more detail. Look, Kurenai starts. Why don't we forget this happened, start fresh, and you can come by tomorrow for another session. No way, he quickly puts down. She can tell from his eyes alone how dauntless and unwavering he is. Not shy to authority at all, she mentally recognizes. Naruto-kun, she slowly says as she sensually crosses her long creamy legs. She catches him sneaking a healthy look as she continues, I understand you're upset and again, I am sorry, but think about Hinata-chan. You're helping her exactly like I'd expect a Hokage would. I'm not upset, I'm pissed, he loudly returns. And Ji-chan always talks about ignoring crazy people who are trying to take advantage of you. So you can forget it, sensei. Figure out another way to help Hinata-chan cause I don't want to work with you again. Kurenai allows the silence to linger as long as she dares, to give the boy some time to cool off. She expected some resistance, but her hopes for a submissive response from the blonde dwindle to non-existent. She can't outright force him, and negotiating with an altruistic motivation seems like a weak leg to stand on, leaving the beautiful Kunoichi with bartering. There isn't a person alive who doesn't want something, and boys his age want all the latest ninja equipment, ninjutsu, or maybe just money. Remembering the state of his door, and the area he lives in, money might be the best option, prompting her to say, I prefer this method of helping Hinata-chan. But if working with me feels that difficult for you, how about I offer you some ryo for your ice dance? Buying yourself something nice simply for talking to a girl doesn't sound bad, does it? Naruto looks at her dumbfounded, a reaction that Kurenai finds unexpected. On the outside, her smile remains just as pleasant, her posture is perfect, swelling out her breasts further with her hands clasped together on the top thigh of her crossed legs, not for a moment betraying her thoughts as he says, you shouldn't pay people to be friends with your student. That just sounds wrong. Kurenai had not expected that level of integrity from him, and she's silent long enough for him to add, Hinata's nice and I want her to get strong, but I've got a lot of training to do too, you know. When Naruto stands to leave, Kurenai hastens to offer, I'll help you with your training. If the blonde was a master negotiator, she's certain he would have noticed the weakness in her bartering position. Instead, he turns and looks at her suspiciously, responding, Kakashi-sensei said I'm not supposed to train with other sensei. He says it could throw off our teamwork if we have more than one sensei at a time. Stalling for time to consider the boy's other interests, she voices the cannon fodder, Naruto-kun, This is very important. All you have to do is be yourself. I don't see what the problem is. That's because you don't care about me, he hotly returns, thinking of how often he's mistreated and is rarely given the chance to speak about it. With Naru and the fate of the future dangling in the forefront of his mind, he seriously asks her, "You think you're the only one with stuff to deal with? I've got plenty of troubling stuff too, and your stab happy is definitely not helping." Okay. Then let me help you. Kurenai quickly hops on the opportunity. If you're really going through troubling issues, I feel we can work something out that can help us both. If you continue helping me with Hinata-chan's sessions, I'll help you with whatever I can. Noting his pause to ponder the offer, she can't help but mentally exhale and think, finally, progress. Kurenai didn't know about Naru-ni, the prediction of the future, Naruto's training to prevent that, or the absolute secrecy he swore to his future self he would keep. Kurenai was also unaware of Naruto's dependence on those now 40 minutes a day with Naru-ni, when he can talk to someone who cares about him like family, helps and guides like Iruka-sensei, and most importantly, completely believes there's something great in him. Naruto would never reveal that secret to anyone he didn't trust, so he certainly won't be discussing that with her, but that wasn't his only problem. Kurenai didn't know how ally conscious Naruto has become. She couldn't see him pondering about training and mastering an area of his young life he or Naru-ni knew very little about. Of course, Ino-chan's words play across his mind like a winded instrument blaring in his head, "You don't make me feel good at all." He recalls Ino yell from beyond the barrier of his front door. And of course, "You don't even know what you're doing." Naruto really didn't know what he was doing. Naru-ni couldn't help, and some of the books he's looked through are more story-based than instructional. Naruto needed an ultimate guide to the female body and how to manipulate it like he does his chakra. He needed a sensei for. Kurenai didn't know any of this, but felt a little nudge would move her closer to what she wants. As Naruto ponders whether he should ask, if it's even proper to ask, she challenges his hesitation by inquiring, "Do we have a deal? We'll even shake on it so neither one of us backs out of it, okay?" She is a woman, and really hot, Naruto thinks. Since she's older, she should know more, unless she's virgin, Naruto grimaces, then shakes his head. A woman this beautiful is probably beating them off with a stick, or kunai, his mind reminds him. Well, Naruto hesitantly begins, cheeks turning a tough pink. "There is something I need to learn more about." "All right then," Kurenai says with a smile, bringing her index and middle finger up to her chest, as if activating ninjutsu, then extends her paired fingers out in harmony. "On the Konoha honor of reconciliation, we'll promise to help each other out." Naruto easily recalls the seal of reconciliation from Iruka-sensei's pleas, but can't help a nagging uncertainty about the differences between each of their needs. "You don't even know what I need help with." Keeping her hand extended, Kurenai confidently replies, "We're simply agreeing to help each other if it's at all possible. Obviously I won't steal, kill, or abuse someone with jutsu for you. And I can't teach you something if I have no experience with it." Tilting her head with her winning smile, Naruto guardedly joins his paired fingers with hers in amiable harmony. "Okay then," he agrees, with a firm two-finger shake. "Good," Kurenai happily states. "I'll see you tomorrow, same time. This is important, so please be there." "I will," Naruto grumbles. Moving back to the couches for a celebratory tea, Kurenai asks, "So, what would you like me to help you with?" Naruto grows incredibly nervous fast, enough so for the beautiful Kunoichi to notice. His cheeks grow warm as he looks away from her and scratches his head. Haha, well, en hell, mak gur lsf feel, gd. Despite his garbled response, Kurenai honed in on the last three words and slowly, very reminiscent of when she attacked him, walks to him. "Uzumaki-kun, I didn't quite catch that." As a self-respecting and very dangerous woman, I suggest you choose your next words wisely. Quote. He balks a moment at the intensity of her antagonistic red irises, but gritting his teeth, he bravely returns, I need to learn how to make girls feel good. She grabs him by the dirty collar of his jacket and forcefully hoists him up. Hey, do I look like some sort of harlot to you? Kurenai growls. Put me do. He tries but she cuts him off. Or that I would prostitute myself to you for your perverse fantasies. He struggles, as he yells, let go, but she doesn't. I always knew you weren't very bright, but I never thought you were this stupid. You're choking me. She drops him like a sack of potatoes before Naruto angrily whirls on the woman who physically altered him for a second time now. Fine. Geez. You don't want to help me, I get it. Just don't expect me to help you either. Taking a deep breath, she practically growls, we shook. I'm not the one backing out. He hurls back, rubbing his throat. I said I'd help you, but not with that. Fine. Naruto yells. It's not like I'm forcing you to. I just don't know a lot about that, and you said you'd help as long as I don't ask you to kill or steal, or use jutsu on people. And we shook, so, well, that's what I need. It's silent for a long time, and Naruto mutters, whatever, before walking to the door. His hand on the door's knob, he opens the door halfway before Kurenai's extended hand slams it closed from behind him, sullenly compromising by countering with, I can get you books. Oh, wasn't I too stupid for you a minute ago? He sarcastically asks. I can't say I've tried all the books, but I've read some and they don't say what I need to know. You're worse than Kakashi, Kurenai mutters exasperatedly. She turns and walks a few paces down the hall before facing him again, pinching the bridge of her nose. What exactly is it that you're asking? I can't say exactly what, he slowly struggles to reason aloud. Keeping in honesty of reconciliation, he continues, it's like I need to learn what to do when I'm with a girl so she doesn't regret being with me. I want her to feel really good, so, if you can show me how to do that, then I'll definitely help you. Her analytical mind tries to separate her desire to kill the blonde from the ultimate goal. Despite the weight of the choice ahead of her, the mission is Hinata. Naruto's a boy. It's common for young boys to be curious about the female body. Kurenai knows at a planned point in the future, a shinobi sensei will take his young pupil, if he's single and willing, to Red Light Alley in Konoha or a gambling town in the nation, to properly shed the vestiges of his innocence, but that isn't for several years if she remembers correctly. It's almost unbearable to Kurenai that Uzumaki-kun, the Jinchuriki, would want this of her. But the final step is just beyond this, she thinks. Hinata's fate, the village's next generation, is resting on her shoulders. If she hadn't ed up, maybe she wouldn't be here suffering for it. We're not ever having intercourse, Kurenai phonetically puts down. Naruto shrugs, completely fine with that stipulation, stating, as long as I learn what I need to, that's fine. Why do you need to know this? She asks. You're still so young. Why do you need to help Hinata-chan so badly? She's my student, Kurenai easily answers. I don't live with Kakashi-sensei, he snaps, clearly pointing out Hinata seems to mean more than her other students. I have my reasons, Kurenai returns irately, wondering why this conversation feels so one-sided. Then so do I, Naruto just as easily replies. Are you dating anyone? Kurenai asks, changing tact. Because this is the kind of thing you both learn together, a very long time from now. I'm not dating, Naruto answers glumly, instantly picturing Sakura-chan's face, followed by Ino-chan's. I want to know because I want to be the best. Isn't that enough? I will attempt to figure out a decent way of helping you, but if that's not enough for you, tough. It's all I'm offering. Sweet. Nay, can we start tonight? Please. Naruto begs with a sparkle in his perfectly blue eyes. I've been dying to know what a girl is supposed to feel like when a boy puts his thing inside of her. In that very moment, Kurenai realizes she drank her last bottle of sake and there's nothing else in her home that could possibly make this bearable. How about you let me gather the material to teach you and we'll start tomorrow. His suspicion is apparent in his squinting eyes, but after a moment he shrugs and agrees. Hinata. Lying awake in her bed, Hinata stares at the dark oak of her ceiling wondering when she'll have another one of her special lessons with Kurenai-sensei. The Hyuga heiress wasn't sure about the genjutsu in the beginning, far too nervous to see a fake Naruto-kun, but after that first time, Hinata slowly began to learn, if anything, it's slightly better than her dreams. In her mind at rest, Hinata is strong, brave, furtive, and more than anything, always by Naruto's side, helping him, supporting him. She may have difficulties within her clan, but at least she's given a first-rate education, a warm place to sleep, food, training, a beautiful sister, and despite how cold her father is toward her, she would much rather have him in her life than not. She loves her family and would willingly give her life for theirs. Given what can happen to her, should the seal be placed on her forehead, Hinata is always comforted knowing that her little sister will be spared that fate. So long as Hanabi is safe, Hinata knows she can endure. Hers is not a terrible life and she only has that perspective because of Naruto-kun. Using her perceptive eyes, she knows with absolute certainty that nearly the entire village hates him, or is completely indifferent to his existence. Naruto-kun is treated like vermin since he was a child, and yet he doesn't give up. He doesn't even look sad. He always tries, always smiles, and with a strength that completely baffles her, refuses to ever accept their fate for him. He fights, always fights, and she loves him for it. Despite the fact that Kurenai is using genjutsu to help treat her crippling insecurity, the genjutsu Naruto-kun feels so real, she can't help falling for the illusion. Thinking of the depth Kurenai is willing to go for her, Hinata is so grateful to have her as a sensei, making her want to try harder all the more to move past her fears. For the goal of being able to talk to Naruto-kun properly, in real life, Hinata will do the best she can. I just hope we can keep doing the special training session, she mentally huffs before finally succumbing to sleep. Kurenai. The balance of power between them shifted with every turn. Naruto did well in the next session, very well in fact. To Kurenai, it almost seemed like he can project warmth and happiness because Hinata-chan never smiled more. It certainly embered the young Hyuga to smile in front of him, but Hinata couldn't help pay so much attention to Uzumaki and would forget her shyness from time to time. It was one of the best sessions yet, and in that singular moment, watching her student's honest smile, Kurenai couldn't be more relieved. Later that night, her every step toward Uzumaki's residence filled her with dread. With the manuals in hand, the knowledge she was about to impart on a boy 8 years her junior, made her stomach turn. Knocking on the rusted, faded red door, she wished she drank another saucer of sake before coming here. When Naruto excitedly opens the door, she was absolutely relieved to see his apartment was filthy. There were several full trash bags in the corner along with oddly organized piles of trash. Recycling, she thought, noticing several tall stacks of ramen cups nearly as tall as Uzumaki. Clothes in a pile on the floor, dust, and for some odd reason, partly cut leaves were littered everywhere. The smell was just as bad as the sight, and Kurenai knew this was her best way out of this uncomfortable situation, at least for a few days. I refuse to spend 1 minute in this squalor of a room, she told him. He tried to argue that he could clean it all if she gave him 15 minutes, but rather than watch him shove everything into a closet, she tells him, I will point out everything that needs deep and thorough cleaning as well as washing before I leave. Consider this your first lesson. Girls like a clean man. The single charming point in that entire apartment was the beautiful, majestic purple starling he kept by the window with its cage door open. She noted it didn't leave and figured it must enjoy being there, though why that could be, she'll never know. Despite the filth and stench of the room pressuring her to flee, she quickly told him there wasn't a single spot that didn't need cleaning. She made sure he understood that sweeping something to the side or dusting wasn't enough and he needed to disinfect absolutely everything, as well as promising that she'll never teach him anything in such a polluted environment. That didn't work out well the following session when Uzumaki was noticeably upset throughout the entire 2 hours with Hinata. He was quieter than normal, sullen, clearly upset, and Hinata-chan thought it was her fault. Kurenai could literally see the girl retreat into her shell. Moments after Kurenai dispelled her genjutsu, she managed to convince Hinata-chan that his behavior was simply a test to see how she might act to an upset Naruto even though she did nothing wrong, and further explained how the girl could remedy the situation in the future. By nightfall, she was pounding on Uzumaki's door. Walking in, she was momentarily stunned by how clean the entire apartment was. The floors were clear, swept, and actually shone. The walls were unblemished of the trickle-down stains she saw the night prior. The stove, countertop, table, and chair seemed sterile and uncluttered. Even the smell is a mix of disinfectant and freshness. It was shocking to see and realize he had done it in a day when she was expecting it to take at least 3. Still, her purpose did not waver and she demanded to know why he acted that way. I'm almost sure you just wanted to leave yesterday, he told her with an edge of uncertainty, but still adamant. I told you I could clean it fast. We even could have gone to the roof, but you wouldn't even listen. So excuse me for being angry with you. Uzumaki-kun, you have to understand that this isn't easy for me, Kurenai tries. You think this is easy for me? How am I ever going to learn what I need to know if someone won't teach me? Because this is the kind of thing you learn with a girl who likes you as much as you like them. Girls don't like. Naruto cuts himself off to avoid feeling depressed. We shook, right? You said you would, so either do or don't, because I have other things I could be training on. With a disgruntled huff, a much too sober Kurenai stressfully explains in painfully blunt detail the many points of anatomy for both female and male genitalia, as well as the numerous pleasure zones for each with a few scientific diagrams. It was terrible for her and only made worse by his many questions. It was clear he didn't understand the difference between locating and exploring a girl's erogenous zones, from just sticking it in and out. He had far too many questions for the hour allotted to explain this incredibly uncomfortable topic. But Uzumaki did much better the following session with Hinata-chan. There didn't seem to be noticeable progress on Hinata-chan's end, but there wasn't a decline either. With enough liquid courage for the following lesson, Kurenai was able to feel a little less perturbed by the whole affair and answer more of his awkward questions. Why do we orgasm? What's the difference between girl orgasms and boy orgasms? How do I make sure she orgasms? Are you supposed to make sure you fit your entire inside her, or is part of it okay? What if you can't? I heard it feels good for a girl in her. And on, and on, and on. With every session she eventually learns 2 shots of sake is best for the hour-long session, though in her inebriated state it worries her when she thinks the way his whiskered cheeks redden is cute. If the topic for the night is particularly stressful, Kurenai will ingest 3 shots. His constant and often repeated questions showed her he couldn't mentally rehearse with knowledge and theory alone. By their 3rd night, she realized at some point this wasn't going to be enough. She's been around him long enough to realize he's a more practical learner, and sure enough, the next day he nervously asks, "Can you, please, show me, please?" The pictures are enough, she flatly puts him down. He lets it go until the next day, when he again asks, "Can't you please just show me?" Just to see how a girl looks when she comes. Please. No, Uzumaki-kun. Kurenai urged forcefully. Use the diagrams and visualize according to the information. He asked again the following night and her response did not change. Though it was the weekend and Kurenai didn't have Hinata, it would have been very easy to argue fairness, trading sessions for sessions, to get out of coaching. However, he's slowly but steadily growing despondent. She can almost feel him withdrawing as she left his apartment, dispirited. So, in order to show the genin her dedication as an instructor, she came by Saturday night. Though she had to turn down his request, yet again, she promises to come by the following night as well to prove her participation and keep him from backing out. Sitting at the bar, alone, is difficult for Kurenai. Not only is the sight of a woman sitting by herself good incentive for bachelors to approach and offer one's company, but Kurenai is one of the most beautiful kunoichi in Konoha. She was turning away company left and right since she was already planning on heading to Uzumaki's shortly. She also wanted the time alone to ponder. Kurenai was considering adding rubber models to the lesson plan and if worse comes to worst, actual genjutsu to make him see examples of what is being discussed. Taking this humiliating endeavor so seriously isn't something she's comfortable with because Kurenai never wants this to become a normal thing she does, but the faster she teaches him what he needs to know, the faster she can be done with it, so going further may actually end this quicker. Buy you a drink? A familiar voice asks from behind her. No, thank, Kurenai begins to say before turning and recognizing Genma complete with his toothpick. Oh, hey, she says offering a small smile. Thanks for the offer but three's more than enough. Enough to teach a young boy about, she mentally adds, downing her last shot. Just as well, he says, before taking the seat next to her and leaning over. Listen, I went ahead of the others just to make sure you weren't here. Furrowing her brow curiously, she asks, what are you talking about? The princess, he starts, taking a breath before explaining, wanted to take another break from nobility and come back here, tonight. We just thought it would be better if you weren't here to see them. To see them, her mind quickly repeats 3 times. Suddenly short of breath while her heart tightens as she mentally adds with repetition, to see them, as in, a couple, as in, to see them as a couple. Kurenai's lungs deflate but her chest feels incredibly tight as a burning prickling sensation breaks throughout her skin. For some reason, she feels the warmth of the sake in her system, but cold in her weakened bones. As the rejection and hurt start to settle in, Kurenai throws up 2 fingers for another couple of shots as Genma continues, I get that this isn't ideal but I don't think she'll be here much longer. Nothing's been announced and who knows what might happen even there were an announcement. Kurenai can't comment in any way about them or the situation, preferring instead to avoid more heartache, as she throws back both shots in quick succession, and simply asks Genma, can you cover this? I'll pay you back, she adds as she leaves the bar. She takes no more than 4 steps outside when Asuma and Princess Tomoko in fine, yet civilian clothes, are walking towards her. Kurenai freezes and is about to at least wish them good night, but Asuma, escorting the princess, walks around her with a simple, Yuhi-san, before clearly ignoring her very presence. Kurenai could have stood there all night trying to understand what exactly happened. She could have replayed that series of motions over and over in her mind and never understand it. She could have run inside and demanded an explanation but she already knows. She already knows because this was exactly what he warned her about, why he, as the son of the Hokage stayed an arm's length away from anyone. It didn't stop the tremendous hurt, but it did provide some heart-weeping clarity. Kurenai stopped at the convenience store for a bottle of sake on her way to Naruto's, saving it for when she returned home, but Sunday night in Uzumaki's neighborhood, the locals weren't exactly shy about heavy forms of public displays of affection and half the bottle was already gone by the time she reached Uzumaki's ugly door. He let her in and they take their usual seats at the dining table. She can tell he noticed how different she was speaking and acting but didn't comment otherwise. After 30 minutes of horribly disjointed explanation, Naruto again asks, Nay, Kurenai-sensei, can't you please just show me what it looks like, so I know she felt good? You said it's harder for girls, right? So how would I know unless you show me? Uzumaki, she slurs. Please, 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 just once, he begs her with prayer's hands. Just this one time and I know I'll understand more if you do. Please. I try SSSO hard. For my versus village, my SS students, she glumly says, disinterested and dejected with images of Asuma and his beautiful princess replaying in her mind as she mentally adds, why? I'm your student, Naruto pleads, suddenly next to her, breaking through her fog of dismay. I'll try hard for you. Yuhi-san, she hears him echo in her mind. Why? Her mind repeats in a tired, defeated fashion. Why bother? And she mentally checks out. Kurenai slowly gets up and on uncoordinated legs walks to his bedroom, exciting him to no end. Skipping happily, he eagerly follows her into his thankfully clean bedroom and commands the blonde to SSSHUT off the lights. Leave the door open. Slowly moving to the light switch, he comments, I won't be able to see if I shut off the lights. Her fumble with the button of her white shorts as she responds, THSYISS said keep the door open. The light from the living room'll be enough. She'd prefer to remove as much of her sense of sight as possible. Though the absurdity of this thoughtless decision hasn't sunk in as well as the sake has, she still feels some emberment for someone seeing her well-maintained nether regions. She hasn't been with anyone in over a year and judging by Asuma's cold shoulder, it would appear her bed will remain devoid of love for the foreseeable future. Lying on the edge of Uzumaki's bed as she untangles her shorts from her feet, her uncoordinated weight nearly tilts her forward. When she realizes Uzumaki is kneeling a few inches away from her knees, Kurenai easily observes his breathing has quickened and his eyes are laser-focused. Uzumaki-kun, girls SS can easily become nervous if a boy SS stares too much, she slurs as she removes her black lace underwear, though her long-toned legs remain closed. But I want to see, Naruto whined. It's been so long since Ino-chan, he's finding it incredibly difficult to control his excitement. Since it's you training me, it's alright, right? Training? She slowly repeats. With the constant image of a princess and son of the Hokage walking together in her mind, her arguments, her worries, her rationality, her soberness, her sense of caring, all fall silent and absent. For this singular moment, nothing matters. Nothing. Don't care. Kurenai spreads her legs and allows Uzumaki full view of her vagina. This ISSS my, she crudely says. It looks way better than the pictures, Naruto says inching closer and closer between her legs to take in as much of her pretty pink slit and clear white skin. Kurenai barely registers his radiating warmth but can certainly feel his breath on her skin. Despite the close-up underage audience, Kurenai starts touching herself, using her middle and index to circle the petals of her ISS start by SS stimulating my labia, or lips, she explains to him what she's doing and why. She further explains, it doesn't have to be excessive oral stimulation, but her mind slips the longer she continues to play with herself. Her juices are leaking down the underside of her spread legs and Kurenai falls back in the bed, eyes closed as one hand searches for much-needed release while her other hand snakes to her aching breasts, maging the hard nub of her S and the ample bosom of her chest. She pulls and twists her hard through her top, moaning, men, on, MMN, YSSS, Kurenai forgets about a lot on her back and in the dark. Asuma, the princess, her deceased father, her precious ward, and her genin team, but most importantly, she forgets about Uzumaki. MNNNN, yes, so close, Han, HHNNN, I'm MMMMNNN. Naruto is inches away from her soaked and digging digits when Kurenai groans a loud moan, plunging 2 fingers in her cunt while her thumb mages her erect. Her pelvis bucks madly when she comes as concentrated pleasure shocks her quaking body, filling her with stress-relieving bliss much like her moans and whimpers fill the dark room. In her blissful ignorance, Kurenai didn't expect, at all, for Uzumaki to launch his head forward, tongue leading the charge as his mouth engulfs her twitching cunt, eagerly licking and swallowing as much of her pleasure juices as possible. Ahhhnn. His unexpectedly rough tongue was a shocking reminder that she was not alone, but in her inebriated, pleasure-flooded mind, little thought was spent explaining the presence of an eager tongue in her weeping cunt. She just saw a black ceiling and felt pleasure coursing. Pondering who simply didn't matter to Kurenai as the digging, muscular organ lapped up her expelling essence, its bumps scraping at her in the most delicious way while her only thoughts were on how much she missed this feeling. He was eating her out for every ounce of nectar, like a man whose thirst is days old from an inordinately long drought. She grabs his blonde silk mane and presses him further into her drenched crotch, crying out, deeper. Abruptly, restless fingers begin to probe her throbbing, pink pleasure hole as a moist hot mouth latched onto her fun button, sucking and prodding her with gleeful abandon. Naruto couldn't believe how hot her wet felt, how hard she clenched or how much she spasmed. Her cunt was like the best glove ever and he wanted to put more and more inside. Learning with his body had always been the best way for Naruto to become better. Though he was incredibly excited, he'd listened to her moans and mewling, feels her twitch or grip and tried to detect which spots made her moan the loudest. He wasn't sure what he was doing or if he was any good, but he loved it. As she feels the build of another intense orgasm approach her high edge, her hands grip his hair as she uses his face to roll her throbbing labia for more surface contact. The heat of his face only complemented the way his tongue played with her ultra-sensitive nub, as his warm fingers would thrust and curl in and out of her sopping wet love tunnel. She lost track of time, of location, of her identity as the strong meat coil at the pleasure pit of her stomach would continue to wind with his every attack of affection. Tongue, fingers, sucking, the heat of it all making her excited and lightheaded. Naruto found her womanly body amazing and like a third helping of ramen, it wasn't enough. She was tight, warm, wet, and her ever-growing mewls and moans were the best sounds he'd ever heard. I'm in, your tongue, yes, on, yes, her voice would tickle his ears. I'm almost, suck me off yes. Suck me. Moments after realizes how close to oblivion she was, the grand wet coil of amming pleasure snaps with the concussive power of a cannon, rolling waves upon waves of shocking pleasure throughout her delicate body. Her arching back snaps up and down as sweaty black locks shoot back with the snap of her marvelously moaning head. Her toes curl and every muscle in her body twitches repeatedly in a delicious frenzy, even her eyelids prickle with minute pop's pleasure. She holds an eager Uzumaki against her crotch as he licks and sucks every fluid jetting out of her, gripping her gyrating S to keep her as steady as possible. Her legs abruptly fall limp over the edge of his bed, her body boneless as she's singularly aware of the constant rolling pleasure of her long-coming orgasm. In her elated euphoria, her eyes were closed so as to enjoy the happy buzz travel up and down her taut body. Judging by the pulling joints at her S, Kurenai couldn't understand how her legs spread wider, nor could she see what an inviting sight her dripping pleasure hole was for a desire-heightened blonde with a thick. Gripping her S, she only felt the head against her opening a moment before Naruto thrust his thick manhood to the hilt, earning a grunting moan from Kurenai. Her mind is as dark and hazy as the room, filled with animalistic pleasure as the two sweaty bodies began rutting against each other. Kurenai didn't need a face or rational thinking, she just needed to forget and a good heart, and Naruto was all too eager to relish in the wet furnace of Kurenai's gripping center. Feeling her rolling walls grip and suck at him in desperate wanting, her moans, her hands stroking the pebble nubs of her breasts, her long strong legs easily wrapped around his waist, it all aroused him to paranormal heights. He didn't last long, but he didn't soften either. Naruto would thrust into her soft folds even as he ejaculated into her flooded depths. He was starving for her delicacy as much as he starved for his ramen, and just like his favorite food, one helping wasn't nearly enough. Naruto pumped his raging hard on into her quaking quim for a length of time that just felt insufficient. They moaned together with his every energetic thrust moving closer and closer to the fantastic end. The smack of skin, moans of ecstasy fill the room as much as the creaking of Naruto's old bed. He reaches his height again before Kurenai joined him, both gyrating against each other, vibrating intensely as they came together, and it's the first break his thrusting take. Yet he only spends it sucking and kneading Kurenai's perfect C-cup breast, extending her pleasure with continuous micro-orgasms while the knot at base expands to plug her stuffed cunt. Kurenai didn't know what the additional pressure was, but it pulsed snugly against all her spots at once and her mind couldn't cope. A little scared, Kurenai simply held on to the hard body on top of her, enjoying the magnitude of her overflowing bliss. His energy, his paean, his rapture was intoxicating, and Kurenai lost herself to the moment. To anything her mind would consider meaningful, purposeful, respectable. All that mattered was the trance exaltation. Within those parameters, it didn't matter that she moans, begged, and screamed for more. It didn't matter whether she was on her hands and knees as he took her from the back, slapped his for more, or that she forced him on his back while she rode his thick, meat pole. It didn't matter that he filled her womb with his virile seed, knotted her to mindless orgasms, or that she begged for more. The only thing that mattered was the lush delirium that took her away from all her responsibilities, and its subsequent hardness. All that mattered was a paradise of mind-numbing, body-crumbling orgasms. The room was filled with the stench of fluids as they would chase their cosmic orgasms repeatedly, often reaching that bliss together. Though in the early hours of the morning, Kurenai's orgasms would simply erupt continuously, one after the other until she ped out. Kurenai. Years of training as a shinobi disciplines the body into an effective, efficient and powerful weapon, so like many shinobi in the Hidden Leaf, Kurenai's body has developed a natural internal alarm clock, always armed to wake her well before dawn. With busy days fulfilling the many duties requested of a shinobi, early morning or late in the evening are a shinobi's best times for personal training, and her steadfast alarm is no different this morning. However, Kurenai is slow to learn exactly how far a cry from normal the present actually is. Kurenai awoke with a splitting headache. Her head throbs so bad, her vision blurs slightly with every painful beat. The gorgeous Kunoichi groans miserably, bringing a shaky hand to her sweaty, throbbing temple. Her mind slowly begins interpreting feelings and sensations she absorbs from her senses. She was on her side, her mop head of hair resting on a pillow, and she was closely hugging what feels like the best body pillow in the world, or a radiating sack of comforting warmth. The warmth paired well with the delectable aches, circulating randomly throughout her and lower spine. The warmth between her legs held the most tremors, making her mind focus on the pleasure of her nether region rather than the dry pain of her throbbing head. It was not difficult to focus on the hard-fought sated piece warming her from core to spine, the type of warm after aches one can only experience after a night of numerous orgasms. Squeezing and stretching against her body pillow surprisingly encourages the warm pillow to hug and squeeze her back, fearfully hastening her rational faculties and memories. As the memories of the previous night's depravity floods her mind, she feels ticklish breathing and wet lips on her chest. Further confirmation of the ravages of last night was not needed, yet even still, looking down is the most shameful proof of her moral descent. She is completely entwined with the young blonde genin. Uzumaki has his strong arms wrapped around her, under her own arms, with her traitorous legs wrapped over his waist, locking his thinner pelvis perfectly together with her own. An errant thought of how well the blonde fits against her is quickly throttled and dumped to the side as tears well to her eyelids before they overflow and roll down the sides of her head. I'm never drinking again, she mentally urges, wondering how her tribulations can be so suffocating that she'd be desperate for anything, be it alcohol or pleasure, to overwhelm her sorrows. As if nothing more could be as humiliating, his jerks as he sleeps, making her clench, informing her in the most embering way that his flacid is still inside of her. As if thinking about the soft head just past her in trance, her grips at his appendage, unnecessarily confirming what she can already feel. His jerk again, though this time, she can feel him growing steadily bigger. Trying to move the blonde away by his shoulders, he instinctively grips at her body tighter as he quickly grows much larger. Without her consent, her body grows warmer than it should, intimately so, as if her body didn't understand immoral pleasure isn't supposed to make her feel good. Instead, she frantically grips the sides of his head and pulls him to face her stern red irises, calling, "Uzumaki-kun. Wake up MNN." An unauthorized moan interrupt her call to the slumbering boy, lightly jerking between her legs, maging her insides. He thrusts his semi-erect further into her moistening love tunnel, and her body overlays the present pleasant sensations with the blissful aches of last night. The rush wakes him, groggy though he looks, and his next thrust is more confident, burrowing himself halfway into her semen-lubricated, tight, meat tunnel. "You Uzumaki," she calls, repressing the tandem combination of last night's pleasures and the current dopey tramping. "Stop. This instant." MNN, he mumbles questionably, before becoming more aware. "Yes, again," he calls as he moves away from her. "No," she starts, but then he lifts her resistant leg to get out. She almost felt embered by her body's want to keep him there until he lifted her leg higher, so the inside of her thigh was resting flush against his chest. One leg pointed to the ceiling, the other between his, he's lined perfectly with her still on her side. "Wait Uzumaki-kun, stop," she calls as she fights her unbelievably palpable urge to continue. It's as confusing as this entire situation. When he returns, "Why? You said this one." He thrusts his forward, reaching the kiss of her womb to her great delight. He pulls out. One, thrust forward again. Pulls out and thrusts back in. "Your favorite positions." He finishes, punctuating each word with a pull out and push in for deep penetration. "When? Dissayda." Her creaming mind wonders as she tries to hold down her pleasure-filled moans. The position always brushed her G-spot in the most delicious way, and no longer than a few minutes of energetic pounding and she was already moaning with every impact against her spine-arching weak spot. Her legs weakened considerable, which is a part of the reason she enjoys the one leg against his chest. He can wrap his arms around the boneless limb and keep pounding away. MMN, MMNN, MNN. No AAHN. You ha ha MMN, ah. Have to stop, she weakly expresses between moans barely above a whisper, repeating as best she can. For whose benefit, she couldn't say. She couldn't understand why his felt so good, and soon she couldn't care. She was debased and moaning for more. MMNN, on, ah, yes. Yes. Hearing the wet schlurp, with his every plunging smack. And knowing it was the mixture of his underage in her dripping, excited and immoral pleasure she didn't know she possessed. Close to release, she sped her finger play against her swollen, expanding and unbearably tight coil set to be the death of her when detonated. Naruto could feel the way her ribbed walls were sucking him in with his every motion to pull out. The moist heat was the most wonderful feeling he can think to feel, but the way he felt when her body wanted him, was the most erotic thing ever. "Stop, stop, 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 stop," she kept repeating despite her hands working her hard and sensitive. Naruto would have been confused by her words if her actions weren't saying something else, but he couldn't stop his even if he tried. Holding her in this position as he pounds her slick walls flushed, he's mesmerized, unable to do anything more but relish in his rising bliss. I'm coming, I'm coming, I'm coming, I'm CUMMMMM, Kurenai screams as the great coil of bliss erupted and her vision blurs to a surreal mess of colors and light. Her entire body flooded with spasms of electric ecstasy, curling her toes, gyrating her taut S and tight butt, sending rivulets of unceasing pleasure up her spine and into her cranium. For many moments, Kurenai was nothing if not the rolling waves of buzzing euphoria. Her jaw slacks and her red oval lips trumpet her heavy breathy moans until she felt her entire pelvis lift off the soaked sheets, confusing her. Naruto lifts her by the sweaty, muscular thigh still wrapped in his arms and buries himself as deep as he can go. Kurenai has enough mind to wonder why the boy's phallus expands until she feels molten man juice shoot load after load deep into her fertile womb. She saw white at the feel of such a miv ejaculation of hot thick semen pressing into quaking rupture of her accepting tunnel. She regains awareness moments later, and thankfully a sweaty Uzumaki-kun is resting face down next to her, breathing heavily through his huge grin, very nearly making her smile by how elated he looks, but not near enough. She takes the opportunity to move off the bed and away from him. He's not a threat by any stretch of the imagination, but Kurenai is not feeling like herself and her body is more sensitive than she ever remembers feeling before. Her usually strong legs, weak from the long night of pleasurable exertion, tremble to hold her weight. Taking a step away from the bed, a large, much too large, amount of thick semen oozes down her legs. I need to shower, she groans with emberment as she rushes to the bathroom. Twisting the nozzle for heated water, she vaguely notes the pearl-white glutinous ejaculate is flowing past her knees. Impatient for a hot shower, she touches the water to learn it's still freezing cold. Confused, she tries the cold nozzle, but it changes nothing. He has no hot water. Kurenai simply jumps in, violently snuffing out all the warmth, lust, and throbbing from her sensitive body. It was the shock that she needed as she feels more semen stream down her shapely legs. Kurenai unintentionally analyzes the sheer amount and concludes the blonde must have climaxed several times inside her. Aware most grown men ejaculate at most 4 to 5 times in a day, she can only assume teenagers are much more zealous, restoring their vigor faster than normal. Or it's possible Uzumaki is unique, she considers as she recalls the plugging feeling. Anko has mentioned running across truly unique UAL partners either on vacation or missions. Kurenai has heard of all sorts of abnormalities from Anko. Odd bumps, subdermal implants, 3 testicles, and a really odd one who urinated his ejaculate. Kurenai recalls the busty kunoichi's tale of discovering a chubby civilian, not the seductress's usual target, with a birth defect of 2S. In her sheer excitement, Anko actually kidnapped him for the longest weekend of double-stuffed debauchery that ranks in her top 5. Anko was saddened when she learned his experience with her resulted in a phobia of women, ruining his ability to get aroused by women. As for Uzumaki, he seems to be able to swell at the base of his when he ejaculates, but Kurenai is sure that it doesn't happen every time. The raven-haired beauty has also heard Uzumaki has very high stamina levels. Flashes of intense memories that prove the statement true makes her blush, despite the ice raining down her humming body. As she washes her dark locks, she shakes her head of vulgar thoughts. None of what happened last night should have happened, but now that it did, Kurenai considers this new predicament. Though parts of her just want to wallow in sorrow, she compartmentalizes her emotions as any well-trained shinobi can, and considers her options as rationally as possible. Kurenai can't kill him. If he wasn't so important to the village, she would consider it, but as a Jinchuriki, he sadly must remain alive, which means the arrogant blonde can talk. He can tell anybody he wants that he lost his virginity to one of the more popular kunoichi in all of Hidden Leaf. While her reputation to her peers and the civilians of her village is very important to her, Hinata-chan's opinion is far more important. If Hinata-chan ever found out her sensei, the person she's supposed to trust her future to, had with the love of her young life, it would crush her to nothing. Kurenai can't even picture the indigo-haired Hyuga ever recovering. Kurenai needs to make sure Uzumaki stays quiet. More importantly, Uzumaki-kun is vital to her plans to encourage and empower Hinata-chan. How the hell did this boy become such an important piece in my plans? She mentally bemoans. As much as she's dreading it, it's more than likely, especially after what they did last night, that the price for his help will go up. She hates the rational threat meant, but he's a hormonal boy, after all. She's not expecting an abundance of self-control. He'll want more, but will I pay it? Stepping out of the shower, she notices her clothes horribly folded on the bathroom counter. Despite the cold, she feels mildly better as she changes. Stepping out of the bathroom, she finds Uzumaki-kun in his boxers waiting for her with a broad smile. Though fully clothed, she feels completely under his intense gaze. "Nay, Nai-chan," Naruto happily calls, attempting to take her hand. "Do not call me Nai-chan," she yells at him, hopping back a step. He tenses in surprise by her outburst. Without preamble, she points to the shower, and he cautiously enters for a shower of his own. When Naruto exits the bathroom, he finds her behind the dining table. She points to the only dining chair he owns, commanding him to have a seat. "Are you okay?" he tentatively asks, doing as she asks as his deep blue eyes stare straight into her large red ones. "What's the matter? Did I do it wrong?" Uzumaki. Kurenai couldn't even properly express her chaotic thoughts. So much about this was wrong, not least of which was how vigorous she participated in their coupling. She would be furious with him if not for her own part in allowing it to happen in the first place. I can do better," Naruto tries to cut her off. "I promise, I'll do better next time. Just give me one more chance." With a long exhale, she continues, "Last night shouldn't have happened, nor will there be any more nights like it again. Not only am I an adult 8 years your senior, but I outrank you. And while I can't entirely lay the blame on you, it'll be a mutual mistake that will never happen again." But it wasn't a mistake," Naruto argues, getting to his feet. "It was great. The best. There's nothing wrong with that." "Of course there is." Kurenai can't help but snap back. Obviously, there's little chance a young boy going through puberty is going to turn down the opportunity to lose his virginity, especially to a woman who is as well received as Kurenai is, but it didn't mean that he couldn't have stopped it. If he wasn't so insistent, if she wasn't so woefully dejected, suffering the deep sting of rejection from the only man she truly loves, if she wasn't drunk, if her world hadn't tilted last night, then everything would have remained as it was. "You don't realize how wrong it is because you're a child who doesn't know any better," Kurenai urts. Well, if you're such an adult, then why was it okay last night?" Naruto returns. "You liked it then, right? You came just like you said girls do. That means you liked it. And I may be young, but I'm a ninja first." She lets out another long sigh, then warily says, "Uzumaki-kun, ramen is your favorite food, right?" She asks, trying a different tactic as he nods vehemently. "If I purchased an extra large bowl exactly how you like it, and threw it on the ground, how would you feel?" You can't. That's so wrong, it'd break my heart. I'd probably fight you, or just get really mad," he easily answers, letting the mental picture spur his ardent words. "What if it made me feel really good to do that? I'd buy several bowls exactly how you like it just to throw it all in the dirt," she continues to ask. Eyes wide with fear, he easily urts, "Then I'd definitely kick your." "You can't do that. If you're not going to eat it, don't buy it. There are no rules saying I can't do whatever makes me feel good after I've purchased the ramen with my money," Kurenai argues, seeing his growing confusion, she clarifies. "What I'm trying to say is, just because something feels good doesn't mean you have the freedom to do it. Even though there isn't a rule against it, everyone agrees buying food only to throw it away is wasteful and wrong. There are certain expectations in a civilized village that everyone should follow. For example, don't waste, eat what you buy. Don't murder, don't rape, don't vandalize, are more examples even though there are rules about those. In this case, you don't sleep with a person 8 years younger than you. If you weren't a genin, this would have been illegal and I would have gone to prison. What? Naruto blurts out. But this isn't murder or any of that bad stuff. What I'm trying to convey is, simply because something feels good for you, doesn't make it right to society. We should not have done what we did. She can easily see the wheels of his mind spinning before he asks, but, I'm a genin, right? So, that means it's okay. Then, Naruto reasons. It's still not okay. Kurenai maintains. You're not supposed to do that with an adult. I don't care about what I'm supposed to do, Naruto yells back. If all I ever did was what I'm supposed to do, then I wouldn't even be a ninja. I wouldn't have pushed Ji-chan to a mankaman teapot to make me an adult so I can live on my own. I'd probably still be in the orphanage, getting hurt, and I wouldn't even think about being the absolute best Hokage ever. I don't let people I don't know, who don't even care about me, tell me what I can and can't do. Kurenai couldn't help pick up on a few key phrases in his emotional retort. An emancipated adult, being hurt while living in the orphanage, and a small question of who this Ji-chan that helped him become emancipated sparked her curiosity. It was a very revealing speech, and it certainly gave Kurenai's analytical mind more insight as to why the loud obnoxious blonde was the way he was. It would almost be admirable if he had any skill or ability to show for it. It also led her to ponder his view on what they had done. This is just training for him. At the most, training with a partner, she mentally hypothesizes. Willing to test her theory, she asks, Uzumaki-kun, do you love me? Taken aback by the question, he comically ponders the question a moment, his cheeks stain red before he answers with a question of his own, is that like a precious person? Like Ji-chan, Tsukiji, Ayame-ne, or Aruka-sensei? He doesn't completely grasp love it appears, Kurenai reasons before responding, no, I mean like a romantic love, a girl for instance. I don't know. I mean, I'm super psyched you're helping me, and you feel really good. Kurenai can't help but blush at the quick flashes of physical and mental memories the boy invokes. Judging by his reddening cheeks and the shifting from side to side, it's easy to interpret he's recalling last night as well. I would definitely protect you, no question, but I still think about Sakura-chan, a lot, even though I know I can't ever be with her, he says despondently. Oddly enough, Kurenai understands that completely. But I think, as long as she's happy and strong, I'll be okay. Plus, I can still protect her if she needs it. As a rule for his sessions with Hinata-chan, Uzumaki isn't allowed to speak about other girls, so Kurenai's never heard any of this before. It's slightly surprising to Kurenai that he actually has this side to him, and even though she's fairly certain he sees their coupling as little more than training, she tells him, listen, we can't ever do this again. It wouldn't be good if anyone found out. Lots of terrible repercussions can happen to you, to me, to my students if others learned about this, and I don't ever want that to happen. Naruto tilts his head curiously as he asks, so, you want to keep it a secret? Yes, Kurenai urges. A very important secret. Absolutely no one must ever find out. Well, I'm really good at keeping secrets, he tells her with a vibrant grin. I'm even keeping my training super secret. Okay. Good, Kurenai humors him so long as he understands. So that means we can keep training as long as no one knows, he asks. Kurenai can feel the landmines ahead, yet answers, no. No, we can't. We can't ever do that again. It's not proper for many reasons. But I learned so much, Naruto proclaims. How do you expect me to go back to books and pictures after that? Uzumaki-kun, I don't think I can keep helping you with with what I've been helping you with. I think we should end this here, she softly voices, but to Naruto, it may as well sounded like a cannon. He's stunned until he hears her moving to leave. Wait, wait, he rushes after her, getting in front. You promised. You said you'd help. I can't do that again, Kurenai maintains, walking away. He follows her desperately. But, it was good, right? You liked it, right? Please, I'll do better. You don't have to leave me, he pleads, wrapping his arms around her waist, trying to keep her from leaving, to keep another connection he's made from abandoning him. Rather surprised, yet saddened to see, she weakly protests, Uzumaki. It's fine if no one knows, right? I won't say anything, just stay, he tries with a trembling voice. Or I'll be a jonin too, if that's what you want. Then it'll be fine since we're the same rank. That works perfect, nay. Uzumaki-kun, let me go, please, she somberly asks, and after some hesitation, he slowly lets her go. She walks around him to the door as he continues to plead his case with pitiful claims. I already know a B rank jutsu and I'm learning an A- rank right now. It won't be long before I make it an S rank jutsu. It won't take long, I promise it won't. Please, Nai-chan. Opening the door, she debates roaring him, threatening him, explaining why it has nothing to do with rank, clarifying what has to happen and why, but instead she leaves, closing the door on him behind her. Naruto. How can dawn start and end so differently? Naruto sat on the GR Indian position, well away from his teammates, with a leaf in his left palm, and his right hand covering it. The entire time he waited for his Jonin sensei, he pondered about another. The night before had been the most amazing thing he's ever felt. Possibly second to his afternoon with Ino-chan. Without allowing himself to recall the events for fear of popping a tent in front a distant Sakura-chan, he wonders how waking up could be that marvelous, but less than an hour later, he drove another person away. He was starting to wonder if he was cursed somehow. Sakura-chan doesn't want anything to do with him, Ino-chan is just as distant, and now Kurenai-chan literally closed the door in his face. Naruto had never been so quiet around his team, but they don't seem to mind. Though he can't help how miserable he feels, he's happy to see Sakura-chan again, healthy and best of all, standing far away from the Tem. Sakura-chan might not want to stand by Naruto, or look at him apparently, but at least she's not by Sasuke Tem. He made sure she knew he was glad she was feeling better, but again, she refused to look at him and only mumbled something he couldn't understand. Like himself, she's also working on her talents. He can tell she's looking over a scroll on Iryo Ninjutsu, but he can't tell what specifically it is. Kakashi-sensei had been really surprised when she asked for more reading material on medical ninjutsu, or as surprised as a man with only one visible facial feature can be. It stung Naruto when she didn't give him the credit for her new direction, but their sensei had been supportive and supplied her with several scrolls for her to go over. Naruto would have surely loved it if she gave him the credit for the idea, but at least she's learning. So, instead of pestering and interrupting her, he tries to enhance his focus on his own training. He's still trying to cut the leaf using his chakra while he has 3 pairs of clones working on the final stage of the Rasengan a decent distance in the forest. This would have been the first morning in a long time he would have preferred to stay home and wallow, but he couldn't last more than 10 minutes before dark thoughts started to materialize in his brain. Like many times before, he told himself all would be different once he became Hokage, and just like before, he started training. Though his thoughts constantly strayed to Kurenai-chan, he continues to push past the things he couldn't control for a better tomorrow. It's not the only drive sustaining him, but it's the best one he has. When Kakashi-sensei shows up 3.5 hours after the scheduled meeting time, he allows the uncut leaf to fall to the floor and begins dispelling his clones one at a time.